Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Bavarian, and today we're going to be answering a whole lot of questions, including, is Victoria 3 canned? And then of course, maybe more importantly, how the hell are they reworking trade? I'm super excited because there are finally, some pieces of news, and honestly, they look really good. So let's just jump straight in. First of all, for a long time now, no expansion pass for Victoria 3 has been announced. Is the game cancelled? No, it is not cancelled. This might surprise you, but we are looking here at Expansion Pass 2 to be announced March 31st. So that is when they announce this stuff coming out. I see 5 symbols here, but that is literally all we know. What DLC we're getting, what it is all about, when we are getting them is something that will be relatively, transparent because it is mandated now by Steam, to be quite honest with you. I think that is kind of the reasoning there, but at the same time, of course, it will be exciting on Monday to learn what exactly is going on there. If you don't want to keep track of this manually, I'm definitely going to tell you, so make sure to stay subscribed here on the channel. I'm seeing some green there. I am hoping, I'll be honest with you, for, essentially just another rework. I'm looking mostly at the Navy, at military academies. I have talked about that so much. I would really love to see this, but I think there are a lot of opportunities and options, both in flavor content, but also in expansions. Now, I will also say that I am hoping that after the Night DLC, which I personally really liked, please, let's create a DLC for the beautiful seasons. If we get a proper seasons DLC that, works for the North and the Southern Hemisphere as well, that would be so amazing. I love the Night DLC. I can't remember what it's called. I think Dawn of Wonder or something for Victoria 3. And that is my wish there, essentially. What are you looking for? Let me know in the comments. And with that, let's just straight jump into the major topic of this video, by which I mean the trade rework. Alright, and here we are. It wouldn't be Victoria 3 without another market rework. In this case, we are talking about the world market. If you're playing the game, if you have played the game, then you will know that trade is incredibly finicky. You, as the state, pay A for transport, so that is the convoy cost that is generated by you as the sole owner of ports. And then simultaneously, you are also the one that single-handedly creates import and export routes. Yes, of course, other countries can create such routes with you as well, but fundamentally you will guide trade via your tariff policy, so import and export focused, and then by setting trade routes. Let me ask you one question. If you've played this game, how do you set it? Because the way I deal with trade is basically the most autonomous one possible. Whenever I identify a good that I want to become a proper producer of, so, for example, based on the company choices or the terrain that I have in my country, I basically go ahead and just start exporting everything. So I just set up trade routes of that good for every country that I can reach, and then hope that they expand as needed, which of course they do. That makes it so that I actually spend very little time thinking about trade, because I've already taken care of it. Are you one of the people that does the same thing? Have you never heard of this technique but you would like to try it? Or are you actually micromanaging, you poor soul? Jesus, that sounds sickening. I would lose my mind, I think. I am not one to micromanage there unless I run out of, indeed, bureaucracy. Anyway, what are we looking at there? We are looking at a complete rework, and I think it's time that we properly explore this. So this is all about the upcoming 1.9 free update. Super excited. Also interesting to see that despite the expansion pass being announced, we are seeing apparently first a free update. Or maybe actually, that's not even guaranteed. You know what? They might just be phrasing it in a way where we're getting this update and then a DLC on top, and this is a free feature, so why mention the DLC if you haven't even announced the expansion pass? Anyway, we have mentioned on a number of occasions that we are not happy with the way trade works in Victoria 3. It is unreliable, overly fiddly, and inherently inefficient since the introduction of local prices and market access price impact in 1.5. Remember, you have a market area price, so the general market, I should say, not market area, and then what you actually pay and get out of it for your particular state is something that is impacted by the market access price. So whether you have market access, and then I think in vanilla the standard is like 90-95% that you can get up there to get the same price at the market. But other than that, you have a bit of efficiency loss right there. Establishing any kind of long-term trade relationship with another country is almost impossible due to the constantly shifting market conditions. And on top of all of this, the system exists in a confusing limbo, where all trade routes are established and paid for by the government via convoys, as I mentioned, while the profits usually go into the pockets of private owners. For this reason, we have decided to start over from scratch. The old system is completely gone, and in its place we will not have not one but two new systems. One which simulates private, autonomous, profit-driven trade, and another which handles strategic trade deals between nations. Today we're going to talk only about the former, so while reading all of this, bear in mind that you're only seeing one half of the coin. Direct trade deals between governments will very much still exist in 1.9. They just won't be tied into trade centers and private profits. But enough with the caveats, let's get to the point. The one thing that I really want to highlight before we properly jump into the topic is just this right here. Very clearly, at least to me, we're looking at an expansion of what you can do and what they include when it comes to the topic of trade deals. I'm hoping for categories of trade, so for example, hey, everything you need to create tools, I would like that to be cheaper between our nations. I would love to see more comprehensive trade deals, but it's a difficult topic. I mean, we are looking at empire building. That is this exact period of imperialism here, so well, I'm mostly, I guess, hoping for one-sided trade agreements, right? Unequal treaties, and they are mentioning this later in the dev diary as well. That would be nice, and then something between the blocks so that you can align and hopefully build something longer lasting that kind of, wink wink, nudge nudge leads you into World War I. Enter the world market. Those of you familiar with Victoria 2 will immediately recognize the name and might even have assumed from the title of this dev diary that we are replacing the national market system in Victoria 3 with a global one in its predecessor. This is not so, thank God, just for the record. The world market in Victoria 3 is not where pops and buildings buy and sell goods, but rather where autonomous trade takes place. And every good traded in the world market has a world market price based on its amount of exports versus imports. You can think of it as existing at a top layer above the national markets, though this is not a completely accurate picture, as you should soon understand. Let's take a look at this. So we're going to again explore the details here as we go through it. We see this is the world market, looks pretty standard. We have exports and imports, but they are listed by countries in this case. So we see, or rather actually I guess by markets, right? So we have the Spanish market, the Dutch market, the Prussian and the French markets. These are the biggest exporters, these are the biggest importers of sugar, and this is a relatively low price because there is a lot of sugar being offered, so supply is relatively high. Whereas here for wood, for example, actually, you're making a decent amount of money when you start exporting it. So then, how does the trade with the world market work? As with the old trade route system, trade centers are still the principal drivers of trade, but the way you interact with them has been turned on its head. Instead of being a building that appears after trade is created, you now build trade centers to create trade capacity in states, which allows those states to trade with the world market. Each trade capacity allows for a certain quantity of a good to be imported or exported. The amount varies per good. Imported goods are purchased from the world market and sold in the state, and so they are profitable when the goods are cheaper in the world market than the state, with the opposite being true for exports. This effectively means that where previously, depending on how trade routes develop and how many you create, you would see a huge fluctuation in how the trade center behaves, and you would see massive stacking of trade centers to a certain level where basically trade centers are, well, every employer that you have in any given particular state, if they upgrade enough. And on top of that, of course, trade centers are actually placed randomly, or well, I should say out of your control. I believe they cluster. Once you have a certain thing, there's already an algorithm there that says we're going to cluster in this province right here, right? But by and large, they are this kind of ephemeral being that doesn't really exist. You can't impact it other than an action that then impacts it indirectly. It's kind of nasty. That is gone. This is not infrastructure that appears and disappears overnight. It is infrastructure that matters. And I want you to think about this even in modern day. If you get rid of the port of Hamburg for one reason or another, trade is going to have a massive problem. Over the next years, it will rise up again and it will find new infrastructure and it will find a new port through which it can flow, but capacities are capacities are capacities. So the idea here being, yes, you're building this, and if your trade centers for one reason or another were to be deactivated, yeah, you couldn't actually substitute this just by moving everything into a different location. So that's actually pretty nice. If I take Hamburg, for example, from Germany, they're going to have trouble with actually maintaining their trade. I like it. I like this a lot. There's a bit more to this, which we'll get into when we talk about trade advantage. But the key thing to remember is that trade uses local state prices, which means it no longer suffers from the inherent inefficiencies of the old system, because it happens on the local level, which was always penalized by market access price impact. It also means that the location of trade centers matters. It's more profitable to import luxury clothes into a state with a large number of wealthy pops, as an example. This trade center in Brandenburg is making a decent profit importing cheap dyes and liquor, while exporting some overproduced goods in the Prussian market, but still has plenty of free trade capacity with which to expand its operation. I think they explain this, right? They have a, what is this, world market convoys or something that basically they buy. It's a new input good. We're, I think, going to see this explored in a second. You can see the imports and the exports listed right here. This UI doesn't look great, but also at the same time, well, it is work in progress UI. When do you think this is going to come out? I don't want to wager too much. I don't want to think too much about this. But, so this looks pretty much done as a system. Except, they say later, they're still working about some details here. My guess would be, it can't be July, August. I don't want to say April. I think April is too soon. I'm going to say May or June. So July is basically impossible if you didn't know this, because in Sweden, everybody goes home. In Sweden, in July and August, everybody is on vacation. And then, so you have a kind of gap in there, right? So May or June, and you probably want to do May, like you want to gun for May so that you can actually do support for June, right? Post-patch support. I'm hoping for May or June, that is my guess anyway. It's like the most logical sense. If you follow, by the way, Paradox release schedules, mind the gap. Mind that summer gap. You will start noticing it the moment you learn of it. And then, of course, in December, nobody wants to release patches either because it's December and people are leaving for Christmas. So those are the windows that we have, and I would guess April is too soon. So probably May or June. I'm hoping for May, but just because I want to play early. Anyway, you can see right here we got world market access that is at 100%, indicating that it surely can also go lower. Other than that, you see the trade capacity of this state here as it relates to the world market, and then indeed we have the input good right there. Other than that, we see subventions, which is funny. I think this is the first time that instead of subsidy, I see subvention in the English language. In German, Subvention is very normal. We got trade advantage listed right here, weekly trades and trade capacity. Interesting. Let's continue. Trading in trade centers happens autonomously with a number of weekly adjustments based on the weekly trades value created by the trade center, in which they will increase or decrease trade volumes to create profits for themselves. So this is done autonomously, and they do as many weekly adjustments, I guess, as we have weekly trades. So here, per week, this trade center might change up or down or adding new trades 2 times, like for 2 trades, I think. I think that is what that is meant to indicate. Well, this process is automatic and autonomous. It's not completely out of player hands, as you can heavily influence trade centers through tariffs and subventions, but more on that in a little bit. Unlike in the old system, trade centers are not reliant on convoys or any other government-produced resource. Instead, they purchase merchant marine. That's what it's called, merchant marine. So that is the MM right there. A new type of goods created by ports, which are no longer government-owned buildings. So let me think about this. Ports will take whatever you give them. So that could be wooden or it could be steamships. They will turn it into merchant marine and maybe convoys as well. Or maybe you get a new building for convoys that is only concerned with military convoys. Man, that is a good question. I'm not sure. Do we get like a full screen somewhere? No, we don't. How would that work? I'm not sure. So ports, I assume, get the old input good that they already got. And instead of creating convoys, they're now getting this. Assuming convoys are completely gone. Maybe convoys are kept for military purposes. But anyway, they purchase merchant marine, a new type of goods created by ports. Right now, the amount of merchant marine consumed by trade centers is static per level, but we're looking into making it dependent on geographic distance to trade partners, which makes sense, right? Depending on what your good is and then how far they are away, you're gonna need more input to have the same amount arrive on a monthly basis. As an additional note, both trade centers and ports can now be constructed, privatized, owned by ownership buildings. Thank God. Okay, thank you. This is just flat out good. A detailed look at the Brandenburg Trade Center's imports and exports. You can see the revenue, price difference, relative trade advantage, and principal trade partners for each good. So you got revenue. This is the revenue. No, this is the revenue. The price difference is this, obviously. Relative trade advantage is, I think, this. And principal trade partners are those. This right here, I would say, is probably productivity. So the longer you keep trading this, the better will their trade route out of this state operate, which makes it even more granular now because it is per state, of course. The other question that I now have, right? This is kind of interesting. Let's go back to this real quick. Can I see anything? There's dyes here. So mostly importing here from China and Britain. Dyes. China and Britain, despite the distance. See, I was going to think that maybe China isn't that high on the list here for Brandenburg, but apparently it is. I mean, admittedly, they're probably not buying a lot, but still, interesting to note. They're importing actually merchant marine as well, which is exciting for me. Okay, so we can trade that good. We know it's a trading good. Interesting. And then exports. We're looking towards Belgium. Oh, I like this one. So that is glass. Do we have glass here? Oh, we don't. I would guess that us exporting glass to Belgium is pretty unique because they are neighbors. Normally, probably, people are exporting it to other countries, preferably, right? But we're doing it to Belgium automatically because they are neighbors, low trade hurdles, there you go, boom, goes the dynamite. Very cool. Now this building in itself is built and doesn't go away. It's going to be built because it symbolizes trade infrastructure rather than the actual trade route level that is being established. So that is one of the big changes right here. We can see that we have trade advantage here on Belgium, or for Belgium, on glass, and we have trade advantage on porcelain. Oh, makes sense, yeah, right? Saxony is producing porcelain, of course, famously. Other than that, we are in disadvantage. Let's take a look at what that actually means as we keep reading. Now, let's talk about the world market location. Switching to talk about the world market itself. So we know how your trade centers will interact with the world market, but where is that world market? Conceptually, what we say to this is the world market exists in the sea. In other words, once you have access to the sea, you also have the ability to trade on the world market. Though, of course, it's a bit more complicated than that. To explain more in detail, I first have to tell you about something which already exists in the game, but is presently quite hidden. Market areas. Market areas are chunks of a market, consisting of a number of states that are all connected by land or by straits. This is basically what you see where if that gets cut off, that gets isolated, it separately goes to 0% market access and can't trade with anything anymore. The bane of, I think, every player. But anyway, so that is a market area right there. To give you an example, the Spanish market has several market areas. One for Spain, one for Cuba, one for Puerto Rico, another for the Philippines, and so on. Prussia, conversely, only has a single market area, which contains not only Prussia, but all of the states of the countries in the Zollverein. In order to trade with a world market, a market area must have at least one port, at which point a world market hub will be established. When there are multiple ports in a market area, the hub is chosen based on factors such as port level and state GDP. Hubs are not completely static, but do not generally move around unless a much more suitable candidate state emerges to eclipse the old hub state. It makes perfect sense. So, to explain this maybe, if you're Australia, let's say you're an Australian player, you will have your own world market access, which means your states and your trade centers will be much more likely to trade with Asian countries, because that is where you are, if it is feasible and if you don't have too many trade hurdles, yada yada, right, trade advantages and so on, then trading with, for example, France. Because France, as a core market, will be elsewhere. Oh, wait. So, the trades are actually like between states with market hurdles, and then with the market area hurdle impacting your trade advantage. Is that... I think that is how it works. I still think, from the looks of it... Yeah, you can see this right here. Oh, that's so incredible. You see this here. Corsica is considering its trade with the world market separately from France. Oh, that's cool. How do you determine whether world market access is 100%? Is it just market access? Because the way you could technically do this, right? Oh man, if we would get submarkets, like actual submarkets for the market areas, that would be cool, but I don't think we're seeing this here. I think that still happens this way. I think world market access probably is literally market access. So if you had 50% market access to the French market, Corsica will only have 50% access to the world market, which is a decent abstraction. It doesn't get rid of the core issue of market areas being cut off for stupid reasons like civil wars, but still, right? It kind of... That's, I think, where it slots in. We have Mallorca here, for example, the Balearic Isles. They're also separate. And obviously, this is important to point out, so they are based in a particular state, not in a strategic region. And at the same time, they do not move that quickly. I'm pointing this out because they do mention it offhand, but they do mention blockades. And if this were to just boing, pings over there, right, my blockade here would be useless. Instead, it seems to me as if I blockade this, obviously they don't have the infrastructure here, actually trading with the world market would all of a sudden be very difficult. Interesting stuff indeed. Now let's move on and talk about what happens if you indeed do not actually have a port. Landlocked countries, however, are not left out completely in the cold when it comes to the world market. Aside from being able to utilize nation trade deals, which, as I said before, we're not covering today, they can also negotiate transit rights with a foreign nation in order to be able to trade through their world market hubs. For example, Switzerland could negotiate transit rights with Austria to be able to trade through Venetia, or with Prussia to be able to trade through one of the German ports. We will return to talk more about world market hubs in later development diaries when we cover subjects such as blockades. Oh, there it is. But for now, we should continue. Let me guess, okay? Let me guess about blockades here. I think convoys are only for the military now. If I had to guess how to explain this, convoys probably are only for the military, and determine how sufficiently you can supply your troops. Supply to your market is governed entirely via these hubs right here. So if I lock out a hub, that will impact it, and I lock out this hub via a blockade. You can probably get some trickle-down effects where even if this coastline isn't blockaded, right, you would still get some connection. So a 100% blockade. So a 100% blockade right here wouldn't mean a 100% cutting off right here. It could mean that it still is supplied through eastern Spain right there. At least that is my guess. Which means you're not going to see issues with market access unless through military means or with your ports going bankrupt. I think that is what we're looking at there. As long as you have a port... My guess is that convoys are military only. I couldn't see how else it would work, right? Because these guys already use a good that isn't convoys. It is the merchant marine. And you can impact this via blockades, via raiding, well, not convoys, but the merchant marine. So piracy, effectively. I made a video about this. You should watch it. But my thinking here is that convoys are probably military only. What do you think? That's where I am at right now, I think, yeah. But man, anyway, I'm gonna be honest with you, just having to think about this is super, super exciting to me. The fact that this is coming. And blockades, of course, are something that we currently cannot do and should probably also impact troop. Does it? You think it's gonna impact troop movement now, or that blockades are entirely economic? Who knows? Anyway, let's continue. I will also add as a final note that one design problem we have currently identified with world market hubs and market areas is that it doesn't make too much sense for huge market areas such as Russia to only have a single hub. And this is something we are currently exploring solutions for. Makes perfect sense to me. How would you do this though? Actually, then again, all you would have to do is at like a certain distance, you would just weigh whether a state wants to trade through this hub or through a different hub. I think it's doable without having to rework like sub-markets or any of that stuff that they do not want to do because of performance. Anyway, while the world market exists in the sea, that doesn't mean that we simply ignore where your exports are going as soon as they get loaded onto the ship. Not all trade partners are equal, and it makes little sense to get the bulk of your clothes imports from an overseas partner if your demand could be met by a closer source. As such, each trade center has a preference weight for every other trade center based on factors such as interests, relations, diplomatic agreements, and of course geographic distance. Oh, I see convoys. I am so confused. No, we're using 61 out of 3,000. I think convoys are military only. Huh? I think so. I think that's confirmed. Okay. As such, each trade center has a preference weight, right? Of course, geographic distance, and will trade more with higher weight trade centers and less with lower weight ones. Makes perfect sense. If we can make it very cheap, for example, for geographic distance to be bridged by merchant marine being very large, right? If we have interests, of course, if we have... Oh, they wanted to make interests more interesting as well, right? Huh. If we have trade relations, if we have diplomatic agreements, if our hurdles are low, if the price is great, then obviously that should be preferred. And that is what they are automatically doing. Very similar to how they do it for investments. I'm gonna say it. I actually think convoys are military only now. There's no way that all of this trade, terrible interface by the way, but it is work in progress. There's no way that this trade is using 61 convoys. I don't believe that this now means merchant navy, right? It could mean merchant marine, so it's just 61 merchant marine, I guess, but that doesn't make any sense because it's a good. And you already have 10 right here, and this is just one trade center. Yeah, I'm gonna lock it in. I think convoys are military only now. What are we seeing here? Fabric trade through the North Atlantic Ocean. Right, so this is all fabric trade in this sea node. You see imported through home county's hub. All of these hubs are importing, and then one is exported through the New York hub. Interesting. You can see the shipping lanes as well. The interface changed a little bit, but not too much. I think this is really nice. There are some questions where I have it regarding understanding it on like a baseline level, I think. When it comes to... when it comes to market areas, blockades, obviously, military stuff. I'm excited for it though. This sounds exclusively good. Now, from here, let's continue to talk about trade advantage. Trade advantage. I have mentioned trade advantage at several points during this development diary, so I figure it's high time I explain it to you. I already explained that there is a world market price for each good, which is high when imports exceed exports and low when exports exceed imports, which is compared to the state price when determining how much a profit a trade center can extract from its trade. However, this is a bit of a simplification. The world market price is the average price for imported or exported goods, so nobody's actually paying this, that is just the average price. While the actual price is modified by a trade center's relative trade advantage to its competitors. Trade advantage is calculated for each trade center for each good in each trade direction. As an example, a trade center in Lancashire will have a certain amount of trade advantage for exporting fabric, which will be different from its trade advantage in exporting coal, and also different from its trade advantage for importing either fabric or coal. Trade advantage is multiplied by the amount of traded units and then compared to the trade advantage of all other trade centers trading the same goods in the same direction. Jesus. So you get preferred, and your price then is better if you are preferred. The higher a TC's share of global trade advantage compared to its share of global trade volume, the higher its share of trade advantage compared to its share of volume. Okay, right, yeah. The higher its relative advantage, which in turn translates into a better price. Advantage is a zero-sum game. The average price on imports and exports is always equal to the world market price, so that is where it averages out. Makes sense. Any improvement on prices a trade center gains always comes at the expense of its competitors. Very nice. If that explanation sounds confusing, the key takeaway is that high advantage equals better prices, and in turn the ability to capture a larger share of global trade. Advantage is gained from a variety of factors, such as trade center level, interests in relevant markets, and trade agreements. Regional economics also play a role. The higher the market area's share of global production, it calculates per market area, which means your state is even more impacted by the market area, just because if you are in a useless market area, you don't benefit from being in the British market inherently, other than trade barriers being gone. Share of global production, the higher its export, is it all market area? That's so crazy. That's so good. That means playing Australia will have a legit change. You can't just be, oh my god, wait a minute. You can't just mass produce whatever you're mass producing there right now, like you would do it in Canada, for example, because selling it doesn't work from London anymore. It works from your particular location. Oh, I see it. The imperial core benefits ever more is the lesson that we draw from this, basically. The higher the market area's share of global production, the higher its export advantage, and vice versa for consumption and / import advantage. Oh, that's crazy. I get it. Okay, this trade center in Virginia has high trade advantage for exports of iron, fabric, and meat, resulting in more favorable prices. Note that the numbers here don't actually add up due to a bug. Welcome to Paradox Math. We're seeing, yep, okay, that's high price. And we're exporting this is our price, not too much of a difference, but it is a difference enough to make a profit, and we have a decent relative advantage for exports. Why? So this is in Virginia. Fundamentally, I have to assume, right, so thank God, they do actually explain it. So the relative advantage is 31%, and then they explain it right here. Relative advantage from 24% of global advantage, so we have, this is our global advantage, our share of the global advantage, I guess, compared to 18.34% of global trade volume. Is the US actually producing 18%, or is that general trade volume? I need to hover over these numbers, but okay. That means your core will be your production site. They very naturally make it so. Oh my god. I might be misunderstanding this, but I don't think I am. They make it even more so now, not just within your market via Mappy, but also with trading, that you're probably not going to be building your tool factories in your colonies. You're going to be building them in your core because you will have massive global advantage there. Oh, that is awesome. It makes colonial gameplay a lot more interesting, I think. I love that. That is actually really, really interesting. Let's move on from this topic. Man, I'm looking forward to this so much. Let's move on to this towards interacting with the world market. Interacting with the world market. Changing the focus of the discussion a little bit, something I feel I've not always made clear in the past when we change systems to work in a more autonomous way, is how you are expected to interact with it. Under the old trade route system, this was clear enough. You as the player were the sole arbiter of trade for your country, for ill or good. In the new system, and I will remind you again that I'm only talking about the world market here, not country-to-country deals, which we will cover in a later dev diary, you are expected to make strategic level decisions to capture global import and export shares. As an example, playing as Sweden, you have a lot of potential to produce iron, far more than you could ever use domestically with your limited starting population. A natural course of action then might be to build up your trade capacity and try to maximize your trade advantage for exporting iron, leading to greater export volumes and in turn creating favorable conditions for expanding your iron production. So I built the iron stuff, I built the trade capacity, I start trading with other countries, I get better deals, my trade advantage goes up and up and up, and that then makes it so that building more iron becomes ever more profitable because I can sell it. It also means that I will have long-term relations. I wonder what happens if like, another country breaks off relations, whether it like collapses instantly. Anyway, it is very intuitive, I think. Intuitive, it makes sense how you handle this. A natural... This maximization of trade advantage can be done in a number of ways. For example, by signing trade agreements with key importers or by squeezing the competition by putting unequal treaties on them. More on that particular point later. For now, it will remain mysteriously unelaborated on. Oh, baby. Oh baby, I need to see proper unequal treaties, and I need to see that being established basically by all Europeans with all countries, like going around. Again, I really want to just bring this up. In history, Prussia had nothing as a navy, just a couple of ships that didn't do much. Yet, the Eulenberg expedition went to China, Japan, and Siam, at the time Siam, and they got favorable trade deals with all of them. Because the European power, the door had been broken wide open in those countries by the British, the French, and the Americans. Now, it should be said, the British, the French, and the Americans got better deals from those countries because they were more involved and because their navy was much more threatening. The Prussians kind of chiming in and being like, well, you know, maybe this is going to balance out the other ones if you have an interest here as well. That is what happened then. I hope that there are at least like different categories of unequal treaties, but the fact that it is something that is inherent to the system is great, because it means we ultimately end up with two different layers. We end up with your empire to empire diplomacy, right? So what do I do with the French bloc? How do I integrate them? How do I deal with them? And then how does my French bloc interact with the British? How do I build a long-term equal relationship with them? And then your empire's relation with all the folks that eventually you might love to enter into your empire via those unequal treaties. I love this distinction that goes even further. Power blocks already do it. Big fan. I think that works really nice. Now, this isn't everything. Another key tool in your strategic arsenal is tariffs and their newly introduced counterparts, subventions. Tariffs are of course already in the game, but now become much more important as they are the principal way by which you can directly influence the decisions made by your trade centers. Where previously, tariffs for particular goods could only be set to import focus, export focus, or no focus, import and export tariff levels are now set separately, meaning that you can throw up tariff barriers in both directions if you're feeling particularly protectionist about a good. This means I can stop folks from importing into my country because I'm making it unprofitable, and I can stop my good to flow outwards by putting up tariffs that way. Meaning, I get to have a good for cheap in my market, and nobody else can access it. This way, I can become autark, right? So the idea being, if I have weapons production and I need it to always stand tall and to not go anywhere else, I want to leave it all in my country, I can do it with that way. Cool. Okay, your trade law now sets your maximum tariff subvention rate, with each tariff subvention level applying a multiplier to, for example, high tariffs apply 50% of the maximum rate. Plus 50% maximum tariffs, right? This is mercantilism, makes sense. You are focused on export primarily, which is why you can't go that high, but you can go very high on exports. I think they chose subventions because we technically already do subsidies, right? You subsidy the production building, and then you do subventions for trade buildings that, you know, are subventing or that are exporting or importing this. Interesting. Tariffs, just as before, collect a fee from your trade centers for each good of the relevant type exported or imported, and so effectively serve to reduce trade volumes of that good by making it less profitable to trade. Subventions function in the exact opposite way, paying the trade center a certain amount of money for each unit traded in the directed direction, and can be used in a variety of ways, such as subsidizing a critical import of military goods, or to muscle out the competition for one of your principal exports. Maximum subvention for import. 50% average subvention rate for import. So I can technically have... tariffs in both ways. Tariff in one way and subvention in the other, and then vice versa, obviously. And this is, yeah, it's terrible. They also do say it is placeholder. They are going to replace this. Honestly, at this point, listen, capitulate, okay? Just make it a slider with set positions, okay? It's going to look cooler than buttons. Like, you can't have it on everything because it's not that versatile. That's not how tariffs work. You set them and then that's it. You can see this right now in real life. Just make it a slider with firm options, you know, like every 5% or whatever. I think that makes perfect sense. Alright, I think that should suffice to give you an overview of the world market. I do want to emphasize that this feature is still under development, and there are some key questions we have not yet figured out, such as the issues with overlarge market areas. Before I sign off, I will leave you with a couple of screenshots from an endgame world market in the current build. This is 1936, I guess. Apparently, the New Zealand market is exporting a lot of coal. Okay. We are looking at a positive balance, actually, so that means more demand right here. Opium still very, very aggressively. Italy formed. Oh my god, Italy formed. Which flag is this? I forget. It's the Greater Netherlands. It's Big Netherlands. How can that be if we have Belgium? Okay, you know what? Maybe it's not Greater Netherlands. You tell me what it is. I thought it was Greater Netherlands. Somehow Belgium also exists, so maybe it's not Greater Netherlands. What else are we looking at? No, I think other than this isn't too interesting. I don't see too many buttons here. We see participants, right? Because some aren't participants if they don't have transit. Fair enough. World market. Oh, this is the participants tab. We have the Belgian market is the biggest one. Okay. Orison market is... Oh, so India went independent in this, I can tell, okay. The Belgian market imports a lot, apparently, and then the British market exports massively, which is crazy. Wow, that is a big, big market here. Jesus. The British market has 69, nice, okay. Okay. Yeah, looking over this, I'm not seeing, I think, too many surprising things. A sad thing I see for sure. Prussia. Prussia. In the endgame. Come on, you gotta do something. The Baltics are exporting nothing. You will export nothing and you will be happy. Other than that, just look at the volume here. The British are running away with it. The Spanish are actually surprisingly big. The Americans decently sized as well, importing quite a lot as well here. But that leaves us right here. So we have this massive rework. It looks really, really solid. And it should make it so that what I described, how I play this, is going to be so much more easy. Because that is the intended way to play it. You set the macro stages, and then it just does its own thing. Beyond that, you make macro diplomacy decisions, and in your individual states, your trade centers decide what the buildings and pops in that state need the most, and then import and export that from there. We will be back in just a few days on Monday, March the 31st to talk about Expansion Pass 2, what's coming for next to Victoria 3. I'm excited for this. I am gonna say May or June. I don't see July. June also is kind of like iffy, but maybe they're staying in office. I don't know, you know, maybe they're staying in the basement. They're not in the basement, by the way. They're like higher up. Anyway, for me, this looks super exciting. I have nothing but positive things to say. I think we're finally mapping the reality of markets much more closely onto Victoria 3 here than Victoria 2 or Victoria 3 could. Still, I'm a bit iffy about market areas. I would love submarkets for one reason or another. That isn't possible as of right now. But this already looks pretty good. I am pretty firm on where I stand with convoys. I think they are military only now. And I would also argue that since blockades are a thing now, are we, dare I say, are we looking at the Navy being reworked? Anyway, folks, I'm going to leave you right here. Do we have anything funny other than the stuff that we've already seen? I don't think so. I'm going to see you later, alligator.